please give a round of applause to Klavs.
Hi guys, I hope the mic works. Sounds like it. So this is what you'll hear today. It's gonna getting old, you know. So something about me, and then you'll hear about the idea for Mondo, how that looks, the world looked as a consultant, and the reality of open source operations, and how to build a company, since this is how to do that, and how we ended up getting something that works. Questions? Normally I'd say ask during the talk, but that might be delayed when we only have 35 minutes, so ask at the end or at the conference. If you see me, I'm always there. Just go ask me. I love people who ask me questions. It's interesting to talk to anyone, so do that. A bit about me. My name is Klavs. I'm the founder and CEO of Mondo. I've been helping companies to build open source based operation setups for 25 years now. I've contributed mostly to open source by way of bug reporting, helping online, and doing small pull requests. Everywhere I had to fix something. I'm as a reporter on the Linux kernel for a bug I found on SAC. That was nice to find that and work with the network guys in the kernel to figure that out. And with DBKG, we had built a nice setup with Puppet, and we could release balanced newspapers to 130 servers in parallel. One great, except that we used Puppet, which is promise-based, the same way as Mark Burgess from previous his tool. And DBKG, if you asked to release version 1.3.0 and that wasn't there, then it just took latest and said, great, all is good. That was not what we wanted. So that was locally written in C, so I could find it, fix it, and we could go on. And that bug report with fix sat there for 5 years until they merged it. But it worked for us, so that's open source. At least you can fix it yourself, right? Stuff like that, and in the old days you had to recompile Apache to go above 256 maximum children. I don't know how many are old enough to have reached that problem. Fun stuff that you can do. I've been using Linux since 1987. I'm a desktop user since 2000. And when I'm not working, I get time for wife, kids, and the European way of having everything. The idea for Mondo was that the view as a consultant, I was out helping building operations for many large companies. It's fun, it's good work. You do a lot of fun stuff, you solve interesting challenges, but I had to redo it every time, because when I do something for a company, the copyright belongs to them. That's how it should be, but problem with that was then I came to the next company, and they actually had the same problems at the level where I work, which used the same open source tools to build it. So I was like, okay, I just solved this there. I'm gonna do the same thing again. And I couldn't backport, because then I came back and I had just built the same thing, but I improved it, because from what I learned, but yeah, you can't have that, because that's theirs. And and operational solutions, they end up being custom and diverge. So that just felt sad to me. And a waste of time. It's not fun, keep doing the same thing. And then I had smaller customers that, yeah, you could really use this thing, but it took me a few months to build, and you cannot afford that. So, and if you look everywhere, we actually have 80 to 90% of the same problems in the operational space. We're solving the same things, all of us. And that's expensive. And everyone is thus behind, because we all want to do it ourselves. So, and then there's SIS-18, regular security scans, and there's a lot of work you should be doing to keep your security, your everything, operational security as well. So that was just sad, and I really wanted a more fun day for me as well, where I felt that I was contributing more. So today in modern operations, you have a lot of work, and you need a lot of skills, a very wide set of skills. You need to understand security, network operation or the operating system, and also the developer's code to explain to them why what they're doing is just wrong or why it performs badly and such. And in operations, you are generally understaffed. You're never enough people to do it when you want to do it all yourself. And then there's this newer thing, DevOps, which quickly was turned into DevOps. Then it's just a developer doing ops, and he has features as well, so he has no time for operations, because that just works, right? So that's, you're always behind. And the problem here is that you need to manage all these open source components. You all use the same. You need to ensure security updates, secure configs, central identity management, supply chain security, backup recovery tests, network monitoring. For that, for example, in one big company, I got every developer to tell me what endpoints they talk to. And then I firewall their apps so they could only talk to those. But what I gave them back was that I monitored those endpoints and told them if there was a package drop or they responded slowly. Due to that, they often, when they had a problem, it turned out to be a backend they talked to. But our monitoring could then detect that. So they lost me for it, because then they could just point. So that's what good operations should deliver to the application teams, right? So, but all these things take time to build and requires time to collaborate with developer teams, app teams and such. And then there are big orgs have a hard time doing this. They hire consultants and such, but still, they're not perfect. And smaller orgs and startups, it's not getting done, right? Corners are being cut, and thus you have crypto locker attacks and such. So, and you don't have an open source project. I couldn't find one that enabled collaboration on all these things that I was building. It wasn't there. So that's just, well, it was sad to me. So in 2018, we came up with a solution that we figured this could work. Based on GitOps, which I've always been using, because then I can do a commit, a merge, run some tests, and then that goes to production. So no one goes to production and fiddles themselves, because that's not reliable. I used Puppet to manage Linux since 2008, where we use GitOps, fantastic tool. And for Kubernetes, we used Argo CD, which is the same for Kubernetes, and then we had to figure out a hack so we could use a splice of 2 Git repositories to create an application plus its values, its configurations. That came with support in Argo CD in 2.6, so you could point the values file to a separate one. So since then, we've been using that. And then we verified the solution. We built a Puppet-based one for some customers that wanted that and work with us. And then we did the same in Argo CD for K8s, which is the open source project for that. And they have just been working for us. We've been loving that we had Git tags, so we could point to a specific tag in place, and then they can just safely sync and land there. And they can have their own customer-specific things. So we run the same open source tool solution here with all customers. They use the same Git tree, and then they have their own tree for configuration, simple ones. That's 10% of what they run. That is just values for the apps they use and cluster names, so simple things. And that's been working out very well. So the open source is actually well tested. And this is the best view of what we do. So K8s is, you all share all these open source components. What we then do is we have built on top of that this Git tree, which loops in all these, so you can just enable an app, and then there is documentation as well for it, how to use it, and there are defaults for doing identity management centrally. And we have, for example, we have overloaded Postgres on all the different apps that use Postgres. So now they use the CMPD operator. So that's now the same Postgres operator that manages all your Postgres in your Kubernetes clusters, which helps when you're in operations, because then backup is the same way, recovery is the same way, and you can unify that management. So that's what K8s does. Then I want to show some examples of that. Did you swear? Come on. That's not the one. here we are. Oh, it's hard when I have to look only there. But this is Cubase, which is actually just a Git repository. That's the releases. And then under here you can see all the apps we support. Is that the right size for all of you to read it? That was my guess at a size. And then you can see all the apps that we support and use with the customers. You can find, like, you can say Greylog, for example. That's for log handling, one solution. So what we do is we have, for example, here, we have the actual chart for our stream is here. And then we use an umbrella model, it's called in template, in Helm, where we then can add additions that haven't been upstreamed yet. We're trying to do that always. And then we do documentation, so we have documented how to stuff username and password of Greylog log into a secret, how to do port forwarding to access it, setting admin passwords, input from beats and index and log retention creation and backup. All the things you learn region with this app that you have to learn, we put this here, so everyone can benefit from that. And then on top of that as well, for example, we want to run principle of least privilege. So here we have network policies for the different apps of that, so you can just enable that, and then you'll have your application contained, so it can only access what it's allowed to. So you can actually firewall it as well. And here we have MongoDB, which is managed by an operator instead of a built-in. So you can centralize the management of databases as well. And then, for example, we have monitoring, which is a huge part of this as well. I'm just going further out here. And the build, we built Kubernetes with the mixins and all that you heard about earlier in the morning. And we add upstream mixins, and we have built a DCNet build profile on this as well in open source, so you can configure, so you can point to your own mixins, and we also support and try to teach our customers, developer teams, so they can build their own mixins, so they can just deliver their app to the operations with a mixin for Grafana charge and alerting rules for their application. So that's pre-supported as well. And this will then just do a build for you and do a pull request to the configuration repository that you pointed to when you run this. So this is all kinds of mixins for Argo CD and others, so you can get this. And this is it makes a build, and then it puts that in your config repository and in your cluster. So everything runs in your cluster. Because where else would it run when it's open source, right? So that's a short showing of that, how the solution works. We had to put a price on the open source somehow. So you could do dual licensing, you can do the open core, you can do a closed UI or whatever. I'm not a fan of dual licensing or open core stuff, because that's not really open source in my opinion. So ours is ADPL3, and then we offer support for those who want operational support, and thankfully we have found a lot of customers who want the same things we do, and many of our customers do, and then they give us as a fee per month, a set price per month to do fun stuff they want to build, and then we can share that with the one, because the only rule we have is whatever we develop for customers, we release as open source and deliver to them as open source. So that way they're supporting open source when they're our customers as well. And incentives, we have a low-cost subscription, which covers what would normally take us to do the security of the updates and basic maintenance, which in Frank is 99% of the security problems is because you forget to update everything, right? And then you have known vulnerabilities, and then you get owned. So that we do as part of that, and then on top of that, they can typically, they often want improvements, and we build those. And then we do varying cost consulting rates, so we can have trainees and such that are developers but don't have as much SRE experience. Then we can sell those at a low rate, So that way we can do do things at a very good price, and we do cost sharing, which is one of the greatest things that open source has given us, being an open source project, because every time we do something, we have at least a few customers who want the same. And then the cost of that, doing that, because we do it, can then be shared across those customers. And that just makes it much easier for us to be allowed to build more open source. And we also do this for maintenance costs. So because they all run on the same Q8 or D8, we hit them, we point them to a certain version combination of everything they run, and then we just move them forward. And we can then do that for one customer in a testing cluster, and then the next one in another testing cluster. And whatever we learn and fix, everyone covers that, and then it's fixed. So when you get the production clusters, those things are handled, and we have a good experience with it. So we can kind of run large scale of production and operations across a lot of small customers. So that's how we make it something worthwhile buying for them. And then to finance how to develop this, you can do investors, you can do self-funded, you can do consulting. I ended up living off savings and doing consultancy on the side for some years. And then we got customers who were willing to get in because they wanted our help. We didn't have time unless we told them, unless you are in on this being open source. And they were, so then we have continued from there. And you can also find startup helpers. And one thing when you do an open source project and help companies with consultants, be sure to check the copyright and who owns that. Because if the company owns that, then you cannot open source it unless you every time ask them, and that's just. So our rule is the copyright belongs to us, and that we release it as open source. So copyright is important. Then there is how do you hire people running an actual company. A nightmare for a developer guy like me or a tech guy like me, right? It's not something we're good at. That took us a long time to learn, a few years. Actually, we had to try to hire experienced guys. That was really hard to find ones that were actually good when we then tried to make them solve things. So what we ended up with instead is giving them an initial test task. And we actually only hire Golang programmers in our company because Kubernetes is 80% Go, and we often tend to have make bug fixes in the upstream open source. And if you can't code there, then you cannot support it well. So everyone in our company are a developer first. So we give them a task, and then we ask them to do that, and then we talk with them there, and that's actually been working quite well for hiring people who are originally out from university or something, have learned to program and learned Golang. So that would be my advice. And then we help to teach more people who can do SRE work, because there's never enough of us. The experienced ones is hard. Google and those, they're good at hiring those guys. So, and then there's contracts and laws. You need an employment contract that follows the law in the country. And you also need to be aware in Denmark, you can't actually hire people from other countries unless you want to pay them, unless you want them to have to pay Danish taxes without getting anything, because that's the rule. Unless they're an ambassador, which you can't have more than one of in a country, then you can't hire them. It's silly. So. And also, we would recommend, as we do, to avoid solutions where they won't work directly for you. I never liked the idea that an employee works for some other company and then they just outsource him to you, because the only thing you know for sure is that he's gonna get cheated, or she, and so are you, because the company in between are going to take all the money there. So everyone with us worked directly with us, and we can only hire from democracies without draconian laws, which means the US is out because of GDPR. There can't be laws that can tell them to take company data and share it without telling anyone. That would be a violation of GDPR, and the US has such laws. And And then mostly importantly, of course, when you have good PE people, keep them joyful, happy. They only stay if you have a high focus on their joy, right? And we've been actually doing quite well with that. That's what I spend a lot of my time on, ensuring that we learn. We have a 50-50 rule, so 50% of their time they can spend on what they want to work on, of interesting things. And they have an environment with 30 colleagues who are some are more experienced than others, so they have a lot of people to talk to and get help from. So that kind of environment you need if you want an open source company to work. In my mind, that's how we made it work. And then we are a full remote company, so everyone works from home. We had an office in Copenhagen, we still have, but no one comes. And we have one in Mumbai as well, in India, where the rule was back then that you could only have a company if you had an office. So we had an office. But then COVID came and taught them something else, and now they're all from home as well. But you need to structure your company. We have spent quite a lot of years to automate and batch and write code and also ensure that our communication worked for being full remote. So you need some chat communication, and it must be the primary way of communicating everything. We use Mattermost. Again, we run everything as open source. Our guys often, can't we just buy this thing? I know it's cool. I have a principle of doing open source and at least then extending it. And that's been working great for us. The few times we had that year, we had to extend, for example, to support Kanban better and do some labels and such, and also to allow planning. But we wrote those as open source and have submitted those as PRs, trying to get them merged, and that was way cheaper than trying to buy Jira. And I've always felt closed source as being a straitjacket, that where I ended up missing the last 15% that I needed to be effective, and them just saying, you're not a big enough customer, so go away. With the open source, we've been able to always develop what we needed, and we have a rule of doing these things as open source, so we've done that as well. And Mattermost is recommendation if you use Slack. Mattermost, fantastic. And then we also wrote a plugin, so if you go to upmodern.com and chat with us, that actually lands up in a channel in Mattermost. And then we have a brain dump culture. We invented we all have our own channel where I teach people to share what they're thinking, the challenges they face, and these things, what you would otherwise do in an office. That works well. And we have a meeting in person. You need that. So we fly everyone to a new place every 6 months, and then we work together for a week. I didn't put in a picture of the last meeting. We were in Nepal in November, earlier, a few weeks ago. That was great. And typically we actually have ended up going to a city where a colleague lives. Plan is to go to Kenya next year at some point as well. And yeah, we were in Thailand before that. So it's important, even though that you're remote, that you get together regularly. Then we had to scale the company. So we need to divide it into teams. And you need to have at least a few people who can lead together and plan and review code, because otherwise you'll burn out your lead developers, and no one really wants to be a team lead. That's the programmers we had, that was not really with their plan. They like to write code, right? So sharing the work of those things, finding out how to do that, and how to share planning. And yeah, we went with extending that here and proving that in the end. And then as a CEO, it was important for me to learn to listen. Remember, no one else in the company is you. And they're going to have different angles and problems and share. So, and then get a one-on-one with everyone regularly and work to solve the challenges with them, because there will be challenges. It was really hard for us to go up to being the size we are now. And then I've learned that finances is hella important, and a lot more surprising when you're 30 people who wants a salary every month. And I only have my salary as the margins, so everyone gets a salary, but I don't. Then it's fine. If I need more money than my salary, then that's a problem. So now we have a finance team who's developing tools for doing that, making sure that I didn't miss something, right? That whatever is coming in when a customer says, the big ones, they're big customers, they also, can I wait a month with paying? They're just changing their system, it's a bit difficult for us. And I'm like, okay, so you want to wait on paying the 300K? Who's not getting a salary this month? there are challenges like that, so you need to be careful the more you grow. So, but again, we'll build that instead. So buying stuff. The status today of Mondo is that we were founded in 2018. Now we are a team of 30 with employees in Denmark, Kenya, and India. We make high quality operations shareable and affordable. So we lower costs and improve security and hopefully the life of everyone. That's the goal for the project. And we make a living of supporting and building open source by offering the infrastructure maintenance through collaboration and minimizing the operational costs by being able to share them and do them for all. And then we offer 24/7 monitoring and instant handling, so they don't have to have their own team doing that. So, and we focus on what we're good at. Linux and Kubernetes and home charts and all these low-level stuff, and then we let the customers themselves and their DevOps guys work with their finance team, business teams, or whatever, and they can then spar with us because we have a lot of experience. That's great, but would we prefer that they do that? We help them along, but and they are happy to let us handle the boring, the updates, the change management, communication with security teams, and all that stuff, because that's what we're good at. So yeah, it helps us just focusing on getting those basics right. And then we're developers first. We develop primarily in Golang and automate everything we can. So that's us. And and any questions, then please fire. And you can feel free to catch me whenever you see me. Always happy to get questions.
Thank you. So I wanted to ask, are you also active maintainers of some of the projects that we might know?
K8 and Linux 8 is our own invention, so we maintain those, obviously. And we have some different, we help with builds of testing Kubernetes. Actually, we help them with doing releases there, because they were falling behind, because they're not actually using Kubernetes releases anymore. And we use that to log and support Kubernetes operation and such. So we help there. And as we grow, we can help more wherever we need to. So whatever we use, we offer to help. And when we do bug fixes, whatever, we do it as open source. So slowly building up in size and helping whatever we can. Anyone else have any questions?
Super inspiring. So what's the long-term vision? Do you have like a goal, a dream? Where do you want to take this next?
Having more customers that we can automate even more, build more cool stuff and share it with everyone, so the open source project just integrates and makes it easier for everyone to consume more open source, enjoy it, and be a great platform.
Do you have a milestone?
No, not for that. We have many milestones. We are working on cluster API currently, for example, which is actually already part of it, just not officially released. So you can use cluster API, and everything we do is built so it works on any platform. So I have a very peeve of mine that I don't want to be logged into anything. So everything we do, it runs at the customers. We can offer to run some, but runs there. And then we offer to, we also have cluster API we use, so you can spin up everywhere you want. So everything we do is built so you can just point, and I say I want a cluster in Asia, I want it on-prem, and everything will still work. You'll still have your configurations, your values you've learned to use, and everything will just spin up there instead. So everything we build is platform independent as much as it can be, and cloud independent. So it can run any cloud or it can run on-prem. So that's the focus we keep. So that's the continuous goal, is to make more of that. So anyone can, just run things anywhere. And everything is in the open, so you can learn from everything and just use as you want. Then you can, follow the project, use that, just a git pull, and you have the latest, and then go sync in your clusters, and you're up to date. So hopefully help everyone, so they have more time for higher level things, and don't have to, more collaboration on this instead of everyone doing their own.
More questions? No? Okay. Well, please give Klavs a round of applause.